Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Abyssal Amulet of Rocken and Beach. Holly Arnold had always been drawn to the mysteries of the past, a passion that led her to a career in archaeology. Her latest expedition brought her to the Isle of Wight, a place steeped in legend and history. She had heard whispers of a hidden underwater city off the coast of Rocken and Beach, a city said to have been lost to the sea millennia ago. The locals spoke of an amulet that held the key to this city's secrets, an amulet that had been hidden away to protect the world from a malevolent entity that guarded the sunken ruins. Holly was skeptical but intrigued. She had spent months researching and planning, and now she stood on the rugged shore of Rocken and Beach, the salty breeze tousling her auburn hair. She was not alone. Her assistant, Sean, a sturdy young man with a knack for diving, was busy unloading their equipment from the van. "Are you sure about this, Holly?" Sean asked, his voice tinged with concern. The locals seemed pretty serious about the warnings. Holly smiled, trying to mask her own apprehension. "Legends are often rooted in some truth, but they are usually exaggerated. We need to find this amulet. If there's even a chance it could lead us to an underwater city, it's worth the risk." They set up camp near the beach, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the water, Holly felt a mix of excitement and unease. At night, she pored over her notes by the light of a lantern, her fingers tracing the ancient symbols that described the amulet and the city it was said to unlock. She barely noticed when she drifted into an uneasy sleep, her dreams filled with images of dark waters and shadowy figures. The next morning, Holly and Sean began their search. They combed the beach and the surrounding cliffs, following the clues Holly had painstakingly pieced together. By midday, they had found nothing but shells and seaweed. Frustration was beginning to set in when Holly noticed a peculiar formation in the rocks, partially obscured by the tide. "Sean, over here," she called, her heart pounding with anticipation. Together, they cleared away the debris, revealing a small, weathered chest. Holly's hands trembled as she opened it, revealing the amulet inside. It was a dark, metallic object, intricately carved with ancient symbols. As she held it up, it seemed to pulse with an eerie, otherworldly energy. "This is it," Holly whispered, her eyes wide with awe. "This is the amulet." Sean glanced around nervously. "Now what?" Holly took a deep breath. "Now we dive." They donned their diving gear and waded into the cold, churning waters. Holly clutched the amulet tightly as they descended into the depths. The water grew darker and colder, and the light from the surface faded away. They followed the coordinates Holly had marked on her map, guided by the faint glow of the amulet. After what felt like an eternity, they saw a massive, ancient structure rising from the ocean floor. The underwater city was real, and it was breathtaking. But as they approached, a sense of dread washed over Holly. She could feel a presence, something malevolent and powerful, lurking in the shadows. They swam through the crumbling streets, their movements slow and cautious. The city was eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of ancient stone. Holly's mind raced as she tried to decipher the symbols etched into the walls, searching for clues to the city's secrets. Suddenly, the water around them began to churn violently. Holly and Sean were thrown off balance, their lights flickering. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a colossal, nightmarish entity with eyes that glowed like embers. It was the guardian of the city, the malevolent force the legends had spoken of. The creature's voice echoed through the water, a deep, resonant sound that reverberated in their bones. "You dare trespass in my domain?" it hissed. "You seek the secrets that are not meant for the living." Holly felt a surge of fear, but she knew they couldn't turn back now. She held up the amulet, hoping it would protect them. "We mean no harm," she said, her voice trembling. "We seek knowledge, not destruction." The entity's eyes narrowed, and it let out a guttural laugh. "Knowledge comes at a price, mortal. Are you willing to pay it?" Before Holly could respond, the creature lunged at them. Sean pushed her out of the way, but he was caught in the creature's grasp. Holly watched in horror as the entity dragged Sean into the darkness, his screams muffled by the water. Desperate and terrified, Holly swam frantically, trying to find a way out. She could feel the creature's presence growing closer, its malevolent energy seeping into her mind. She knew she couldn't escape it, not without understanding the amulet's power. She focused on the symbols, her mind racing. She realized that the amulet wasn't just a key, it was a weapon. It held the power to banish the entity, to seal it away once more. But to use it, she would have to face the creature head-on. With a newfound resolve, Holly turned back toward the darkness. She could see the creature looming ahead, its eyes glowing with rage. She raised the amulet, chanting the incantation she had pieced together from the ancient texts. The amulet pulsed with energy, and a beam of light shot out, striking the creature. It let out a deafening roar, its form writhing in pain. Holly continued the incantation, pouring all her strength into the words. The creature thrashed and howled, its body dissolving into shadows. Finally, with a final, agonized scream, it vanished, the water growing still and silent once more. Exhausted and shaking, Holly swam to where Sean had been taken. She found him unconscious but alive, his body bruised and battered. She dragged him back to the surface, a long spurning as she broke through the waves. They lay on the beach, gasping for air, the amulet still clutched in Holly's hand. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the water. Holly looked at Sean, relief flooding through her. They had survived. But as she gazed out at the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that the entity's presence still lingered, a dark shadow lurking beneath the waves. The amulet's power had saved them, but it had also awakened something ancient and dangerous. Holly knew that their discovery would change everything. The underwater city held secrets beyond their understanding, and the world was not ready for them. She vowed to protect the amulet, to keep its power hidden away. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, Holly felt a shiver run down her spine. The adventure was over, but the horror had just begun. The Abyssal amulet had unlocked a door that could never be closed, and the forces of the deep were watching, waiting for their chance to rise again. As Holly and Sean recuperated on the beach, the gravity of their encounter began to weigh heavily on them. Holly's resolve to protect the amulet was firm, but she knew they needed to understand its full potential and the true extent of the entity's power. Part 2. The Whispering Depths. Days turned into weeks as Holly and Sean delved deeper into the mystery surrounding the amulet. They set up a makeshift research lab in an old, abandoned lighthouse overlooking Rocken beach. The lighthouse, with its weather-beaten walls and creaking floors, seemed to echo the secrets of the ancient city below. Holly spent hours studying the amulet, deciphering the symbols and texts that covered its surface. She discovered references to an ancient order of guardians, dedicated to keeping the entity imprisoned. The more she learned, the more she realized how precarious their situation was. The entity was not just a guardian. It was a remnant of an ancient, malevolent force that once threatened to engulf the world in darkness. Sean, despite his ordeal, proved invaluable. His diving skills allowed them to retrieve more artifacts from the underwater city, each one providing new clues and insights. He also began to experience strange dreams, visions of the city, the entity, and the guardians who once fought to contain it. These dreams seemed to connect him to the amulet in a way Holly couldn't quite understand. One stormy night, as the wind howled around the lighthouse, Holly and Sean were poring over a newly discovered scroll. The ancient parchment spoke of a ritual, a way to permanently seal the entity and prevent it from ever rising again. But the ritual required a sacrifice, a willing soul to bind the entity in the abyss forever. Holly's heart sank as she read the final lines. She knew what had to be done, but the thought of sacrificing someone, especially Sean, was unbearable. "There's got to be another way," Sean said, his voice steady but strained. "We'll figure it out." Holly shook her head. "This ritual is our best chance. If we don't perform it, the entity will eventually break free, and the consequences will be catastrophic." Sean looked at her, determination in his eyes. "Then we need to find someone willing to make that sacrifice." The next morning, they set out to find answers. They spoke with local historians, occult experts, and anyone who might have knowledge of the ancient order of guardians. Their search led them to an old, secluded manor on the outskirts of the island, home to a reclusive scholar named Elias Crowley. Elias was a tall, gaunt man with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through them. He listened intently as Holly and Sean explained their discovery and the looming threat. "I've heard of the amulet and the entity it guards," Elias said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper. "The order of guardians was real, but their knowledge has been lost to time. However, I may have something that can help." He led them to a dusty library filled with ancient shrines and manuscripts. After hours of searching, they found a book detailing the history of the Guardians and their rituals. Elias pointed to a passage that described a special artifact, a crystal dagger, which was used in the sacrificial ritual to bind the entity. "The dagger is said to be hidden within the underwater city," Elias explained. "Without it, the ritual cannot be completed." Holly and Sean knew what they had to do. They thanked Elias and prepared for another dive. As they descended into the depths once more, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The water seemed darker and colder than before, and the city loomed ahead like a ghostly spectre. They searched the ruins methodically, guided by the amulet's glow. Finally, in the heart of the city, they found a chamber adorned with carvings of the ancient guardians. In the center of the chamber, resting on a pedestal, was the crystal dagger. Holly reached out to take it, but as her fingers closed around the hilt, the water around them erupted in a violent surge. The entity had returned, its eyes burning with fury. It lunged at them, its form shifting and writhing like a living shadow. Sean acted quickly, using the amulet to deflect the entity's attacks. Holly gripped the dagger tightly, the weight of their mission pressing down on her. They couldn't afford to fail. With a surge of adrenaline, Holly began the ritual, chanting the ancient words inscribed in the scroll. The amulet and the dagger glowed with an intense light, filling the chamber with a blinding radiance. The entity screamed in rage and pain, its form disintegrating under the combined power of the artifacts. As the ritual neared its climax, Holly felt a presence beside her. It was Sean, his face calm and resolute. He placed his hand over hers on the dagger, adding his strength to hers. Together he whispered. In a final burst of energy, the light from the amulet and dagger enveloped them, sealing the entity in a prison of light. The chamber trembled and the walls began to collapse. Holly and Sean swam desperately for the surface, the weight of the ocean pressing down on them. They broke through the waves just as the underwater city crumbled into the abyss. Exhausted and battered, they made their way back to the shore, collapsing onto the sand. The storm had passed and the sky was clear. Holly looked at the amulet, now dull and lifeless, its power spent. The entity was sealed, but at a great cost. Sean had given a part of himself to complete the ritual, and Holly knew he would never be the same. As they lay on the beach, catching their breath, Holly felt a sense of peace wash over her. They had done it. They had saved the world from an ancient evil. But the experience had changed them both, leaving scars that would never fully heal. Holly vowed to protect the knowledge they had uncovered, to ensure that the amulet and the dagger remained hidden. The world was not ready for the horrors that lay beneath the waves. As the sun rose, casting a golden light over Rocken beach, Holly knew their journey was far from over. The Abyssal amulet had been silenced, but the whispers of the deep would always remain, a haunting reminder of the forces that lurked in the shadows, waiting for the day they could rise once more. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.